Now, these people that live this life, do they have something they're working towards? Do they have an idea that they're working towards? I mean, when you press them on it and ask them, like, why are you here? Do you ever plan on leaving? Do you ever see yourself going somewhere else?
That's a really good question. I asked them all those questions. So, no, they felt like that was their calling.
Their calling.
They were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And that they were committed to that lifestyle. So, no, they weren't. There was no thought of going back.
You know, like just talking to you about your time in the monastery or your push to get to that 100 miles, like you get energy out of people like that, and you think about this energy and you think about this inspiration when you're doing other things, and it also sets in your mind that when you meet these exceptional people that move you, like what are the characters, what are the qualities that they have, what are the characteristics that they possess, and those things become significant and important to you. Whereas if you live around a bunch of people that are complaining and bitching about everything and they see the negative in everything.
Good for him. Okay, this is starting off pretty well. This is starting off pretty well.
I'm very happy.
Good. I'm happy with that.
Thank you to the Academy for this honor of honors.
You believe they're going to pull it back? They did the same thing with George W. Bush, that he was a Nazi. They did the same thing when Mitt Romney was running. Binders full of women. The fact that he had his dog kennel on top of the car, which I will grant, I don't know, maybe it's more of a thing. I'm not one to judge their culture. But now these people act like, well, it's time to be Americans and find common ground. You're finding common ground with people who will abandon you, discard you, and paint you out to be the same evil Nazi that they do Donald Trump. Appeasing crocodiles is futile. I don't know why.
The anti-Israel cheaper cheese.
A lot of people will do that just to get the U.S. savings bonds. So it's very difficult for me to prove that I'm Jewish. I will say, however, in my defense, that I don't think that I am anti-Israel per se, but I will say that we did in fact report on the protests in Israel. I don't know if they were necessarily happening during Occupy. I think they were happening sometime between Occupy and the Arab Spring, but they were protests against a lot of the neoliberal policies that were taking place in Israel. Lawyer Matthew just disinvited me to pass over.
California, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Oregon all announced they are reconsidering mask mandates a year too late. Accusations of racism continue to be the less favorite weapon for institutional change, and Andrew Yang throws Joe Rogan under the bus. I'm Ben Shapiro, this is The Ben Shapiro Show. The Ben Shapiro Show is sponsored by ExpressVPN. I talk about them every single show. I haven't gotten VPN yet. ExpressVPN right now. ExpressVPN.com/Ben. We'll get to all the news in just one moment. First, you have to be looking at the interest rate news, and you know that the forecasts do not look good. The fact of the matter is the Federal Reserve is about to raise the interest rates. This means mortgage rates are about to go up, which means you need to sneak under the wire right now. Look at your monthly payments on all the stuff you pay for. Your mortgage is by far the largest expense you have. What if you can lower that significantly? This is why you should head on over to American Financing. Get that free mortgage review I've been telling you about and do it right now. See if you can get a better deal before the rates jump.
In 2004, then Illinois Senate candidate Barack Obama delivered the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention in Boston. He spoke about his personal background.
Honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya. He grew up herding goats, went to school in a tin roof shack. His father, my grandfather, was a cook, a domestic servant to the British. But my grandfather had larger dreams for his son. Fewer ones were available. His values and his record affirm what is best in us.
President Biden today accepted House Speaker Pelosi's invitation to give the State of the Union address on the 1st of March. It'll be the latest in the year by any president since 1934. But in so many ways, we've already been reckoning with the State of the Union. Now, in a moment, you're going to see the sheer spectacle of a sitting Republican U.S. Senator, one of the most powerful individuals in the country, representing one of the biggest states in the nation, pretty much groveling at the feet of a right. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times in official written. Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17. Didn't work. According to CNN's Daniel Dale, Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times in official written. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol assault a terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol a salty terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol a salty terrorist attack at least 17 previous times. Ted Cruz has called the Capitol a salty terrorist attack at least 17 previous times in official.
This is a big crowd. You set an all-time record. This is a big crowd. I wish the press just one time would turn those cameras around. They go back. Football fields back. Thank you. I wish that. Look at all the media. Look at all the fake news we have. Fake news. They ought to turn those cameras back just one time. You know, they don't do that. They don't want to show the kind of crowds we get. Because our country is angry and our country wants to be respected again. Hello, Texas. It's great to be back.
And now, my fellow Americans, it is my honor to introduce a leader who is unwavering in his commitment to defend our democracy and ensure the ballot prevails. The President of the United States of America, Joe Biden.
In our lives, in the lives of our nation, life of our nation, there are moments so stark that they divide all that came before and everything that followed. They stop time. They rip away the trivial from the essential. And they force us to confront hard truths about ourselves, about our institutions, and about our democracy. All that came before and everything that followed. From the essential. Democracy. And the words of Scripture remind us to hate evil, love good, and establish justice in the gate. And establish justice in the gate. Evil, hate evil, love good, and establish justice. Hate evil, love good, and was literally hell at the throat. Was literally hell at the throat. Was literally hell at the throat. But with it, anything is possible. It's convenient, and you get more people to vote. It's about making it harder to vote. It takes on election subversion. Voted to extend the Voting Rights Act. Vote. Let the majority prevail. Create fair district maps and ending partisan gerrymandering. His loyalists will be placed in charge of state elections. There's some blocking action on voting rights. Let me be clear. That's how you won the historic elections for Senator Raphael Warnock and Senator John Ossoff. Bipartisan, but it's also used to obstruct, including especially obstruct civil rights and voting rights. It'll restore the strength of the Voting Rights Act to 65 as a high school student in the late 50s and early 60s to extend the Voting Rights Act. Strom Thurmond. All other rights flow. And I make it with an appeal to my Republican colleagues, to those Republicans who believe in the rule of law. And the horrible screams. They beat her. I don't know screams. They beat her. Screams. They beat her. And the horrible screams. Described the beating this way, and I quote, Hamer, who described the beating this way, and I quote, to protect voting rights has never been born in the United States Senate. That means we have 51 presidents. By class after class.
Mr. President.
Senator from Utah.
Mr. President, I prepared some remarks to give this evening. It has survived and thrived for over 200 years. This virtually assures that the bill did not originate from the extreme wing of either one. Justice and intelligence agencies were belittled. Public health agencies were dismissed. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize. Time to rationalize. Rationalize. To rationalize. Taking that to rationalize. To rationalize. Taking to rationalize. 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 Advantage that would require abandoning principles. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. Overtime to rationalize abandoning principles. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage. The human mind goes to work overtime to rationalize taking that advantage.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi at the end of Trump's address, sitting right behind him and
all these latest revelations about the plot to overthrow the elections. All these latest revelations about
latest revelations about the plot to overthrow the election, this stuff about taking the voting machines, taking the election machinery, keeps coming out. And again, this is one of those things like the fake slates of electors that they forge. It's one of those things that seems random, right? It seems like a bizarro world, sort of inexplicable sidebar to the overall. The fake slates of electors that they forge. It's one of those things that seems random, right? It's one of those things that seems random. Those things that seems random, right? It seems forged. It's one of those things that seems random, right? It's 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 random, right? Random, right? It's random, right? It's random, right? Random, right? It's bizarro world, random, random. It seems like a random, right? It seems random, right? Random, right? It's random, right? It's random, right? Random, right? It's random, right? It's random, right? Random, right? It's random, right? Random, right? Random, right? It's random, right? It seems like a bizarro world, sort of inexplicable sidebar to the overall plot. But apparently they were really fixated on it, and they worked really hard on it from like 5 to the overall. Really fixed. But apparently sidebar. Trump's scheme that the voting machines needed to be seized before the machine was, quote, wiped clean. And the upper right, he's a Republican elected official from Ohio.
It's true. I'm not picky, except around scabs. That's pretty good. I like that one. Clap, it's Friday. Clap away. Stop clapping. Clap again. All right. Happy Friday, everyone. What an amazing week we've had. For one, the legacy media is dying. What is the legacy media, you ask? Exactly my point. In another year or two, it's going to be a distant memory, a relic, part of a bygone era. Like, what is the legacy media, you ask? Exactly my point. In another year or two, it's going to be a distant memory, a relic, a point. In another year or two, it's going to be a distant memory, it's going to be a point. In another year or two, exactly my point. In another year or two, it's going to be a distant memory. A point. In another year or two, it's going to be a distant memory. Another year or two, it's going to be a distant memory. Another year or two, it's going to be a distant memory. Another year or two, it's going to be a distant memory. Memory.
At the age of 12 years old.
American culture is now normalizing the idea that minors can be given hormones to prevent their biological development of their secondary sexual characteristics. Dr. Levine, you have supported both allowing minors to be given hormone blockers to prevent them from going through puberty, as well as surgical destruction of a minor's genitalia. Like surgical mutilation, hormonal interruption of puberty can permanently alter and prevent secondary sexual characteristics. The American College of Pediatricians reports that 80 to 95% of prepubertal children with gender dysphoria will experience resolution by late adolescence if not exposed to medical intervention and social affirmation. Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex? Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field with robust research and standards of care that have been developed. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of Health, I look forward to working with you and your office and coming to your office and discussing the particulars of the standards of care for transgender medicine.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breast and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless and distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused with her identity. At 14, she read on the internet about something about transsexual. She thought, well, maybe that's what I am. She ended up getting these puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. She had her breasts amputated. But here's what ultimately she says now. And this is a very insightful decision from someone who made a mistake, but was led to believe this was a good thing by the medical community. I made a brash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do, trying to find confidence and happiness. Except now the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said, adding that the medicalized gender transitioning was a very temporary, superficial fix for a very complex identity issue. What I'm alarmed at is that you're not willing to say absolutely minors shouldn't be making decisions to amputate their breasts or to amputate their genitalia. For most of our history, we believe that minors don't have full rights and the parents need to be involved. So I'm alarmed that you won't say with certainty that minors should not have the ability to make the decision to take hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life. Will you make a more firm decision on whether or not minors should be involved in these decisions?
Senator, transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field, and if confirmed to the position of Assistant Secretary of Health, I would certainly be pleased to come to your office and talk with you and your staff about the standards of care and the complexity of this field.
Let it go into the record that the witness refused to answer the question.
Before I turn it over to Senator Murphy, I do want to say, Dr. Levine, I want to say I appreciated your thoughtful and medically informed response to Senator Paul's questions earlier in the hearing. It is really critical to me that our nominees be treated with respect and that
Mutilation has been condemned by the WHO, the United Nations Children's Fund, the United Nations Population Fund. According to the WHO, genital mutilation is recognized internationally as a violation of human rights. Genital mutilation is considered particularly egregious because, as the WHO notes, it is nearly always carried out on minors and is a violation of the rights of children. Most genital mutilation is not typically performed by force, but as WHO notes that by social convention, social norm, the social pressure to conform, to do what others do and have been doing, as well as the need to be accepted socially and the fear of being rejected by the community. American culture is now normalizing the idea that minors can be given hormones to prevent their biological development of their secondary sexual characteristics. Dr. Levine, you have supported both allowing minors to be given hormone blockers to prevent them from going through puberty, as well as surgical destruction of the minor's genitalia. Like surgical mutilation, hormonal interruption of puberty can permanently alter and prevent secondary sexual characteristics. The American College of Pediatricians reports that 80 to 95% of prepubertal children with gender dysphoria will experience resolution by late adolescence if not exposed to medical intervention and social affirmation. Dr. Levine, do you believe that minors are capable of making such a life-changing decision as changing one's sex?
Well, Senator, thank you for your interest in this question. Transgender medicine is a very complex and nuanced field with robust research and standards of care that have been developed. And if I am fortunate enough to be confirmed as the Assistant Secretary of Health, I look forward to working with you and your office and coming to your office and discussing the particulars of the standards of care for transgender medicine.
The specific question was about minors. Let's be a little more specific since you evaded the question. Do you support the government intervening to override the parent's consent to give a child puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and/or amputation surgery of breast and genitalia? You have said that you're willing to accelerate the protocols for street kids. I'm alarmed that poor kids with no parents who are homeless and distraught, you would just go through this and allow that to happen to a minor. I would hope that you would have compassion for Kira Bell, who's a 23-year-old girl who was confused with her identity. At 14, she read on the internet about something about transsexual. She thought, well, maybe that's what I am. She ended up getting these puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones. She had her breasts amputated. But here's what ultimately she says now. And this is a very insightful decision from someone who made a mistake, but was led to believe this was a good thing by the medical community. I made a brash decision as a teenager, as a lot of teenagers do, trying to find confidence and happiness. Except now the rest of my life will be negatively affected, she said.
Always whining.
Gender
Those people
transitioning
are the opposite
was a very
of that. They're
temporary,
the opposite of
superficial
inspiration.
fix
And
for a
they're
very
just,
complex
they're
identity
mud.
issue.
You're just like,
What I'm
well, it's
alarmed
like
at is that you're
up
not
to your
willing to
ankles
say
and you're trying to
absolutely
try
minors
to
shouldn't be making
life.
decisions to amputate
It's
their
not
breasts or to
pushing
amputate their
you,
genitalia.
your back. The wind's in your face.
For
and
most
it's
of our
rough.
history, we
You know,
believe that
and
minors don't have full rights and the parents
over
need to be
time,
involved.
I've learned
So I'm
that
alarmed
these
that you won't
people
say
just,
with certainty
you're not
that
going to
minors
fix them.
should
I used
not
to want
have
to fix
the
them when I was young.
ability to
I
make
used to want to say,
decisions
hey, man, I
to
see what
take
you're doing.
hormones that will affect them for the rest of their life.
Just do this. Stop doing that. Stop doing this.
This is about any other Republican from 2020. They're not the first time in terms like this is going on. Admitted, non-impeachable crime. I'm amazed that you're not.
John Bolton, listen, I disagree with him. He's an American hero, John Bolton. Listen, I disagree with him in politics, but he's a decent man. Since when? He's in the election. Everybody calling him out. I appreciate everybody stands for him, by the way. You have to probably go respect the family stand for things. Don't say it instead. He's like, destroy harsh message reputation. His name, anyone out there who thinks it's the Donald Trump problem is completely delusional. And I say this, by the way, as someone, I always make sure I listen to I want to cover my own ass. Why? Because I want you to know that I was more wrong about him than anything in my life. In the sense that I didn't take I was wrong. So wrong. I want to be clear about that. I admit it. I apologize for it. So right now, Donald Trump out. No, for Democrats to lose it.
It's so unreal.